Welcome everyone to MS Teams with Jaws and screen readers, how they can work together. My name is Jim Sullivan and I am an APH team member in charge of social enterprise. So very glad that you could all be with us today from all around the country. We've got a number of things in store for you today. So in terms of an agenda, we're going to do introductions. And part one of today is going to be a 60-minute look at Microsoft Teams with Jaws and screen readers with Cody Laplante from IT. And that will be for ACV REP credit. At the conclusion of that 60 minutes, we're going to be joined by a few folks from the Vispero team. Mike Wood and Eric Damery will come along and talk about securing Jaws and Vispero solutions from APH with us. So that will go from about 1 until about 1:30 this afternoon. That will not be for ACV REP credit. So that's a little look at our agenda for the day. Joining us from Maryland is Cody Laplante. He's the founder of IT, and he is an itinerant TVI with the Baltimore County School. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Cody. Down the road a little bit, Mike Wood, who is also with Vispero and the Strategic Account Manager for Education, will join in with Eric Damery, who is the VP of Software Product Management. So for the first part, part one, our learning objectives with Cody are as follows. The participants will be able to identify the 3 major command structures needed to access Microsoft Teams. The participant will be able to explain the 3-step process for making a video call to a specific student. It will be able to explain the 3-step process for making a video call to a group of students. And finally, the participant will be able to identify 3 additional navigation shortcuts that can also be used to navigate within Microsoft Teams. Now, as I mentioned, joining us is Cody Laplante. He's coming to us from the great state of Maryland. He is the founder of IT, and he is going to tell us a little bit about what IT can provide and what's in the future. Cody, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Welcome to everybody. Before we begin, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about IT, what we do, and some of the things that we offer for free, especially at this time when we're all kind of reinventing our roles. So the first thing, if you haven't seen, we put out recently a YouTube series. It's three videos going over how to deliver remote instruction. So that's really good. It's called TV Eyes at Home. You can find it on YouTube or on our website, and we'll go over that in a second. We also offer free NVDA and Jaws cheat sheets. In a couple of weeks, we're going to release our Chromevox cheat sheet. And that is, I'm biased, but it's the best cheat sheet out there because it goes through and it organizes it in a way that you would actually teach Jaws or NVDA. So it's very easy to follow. Right now we're doing a screen reader lesson challenge via email. And you get 5 days of emails that you can use to start developing your own lesson to teach Jaws, NVDA, or Chromevox. And that's also available on our website. And of course, we do live trainings for teams. And recently, we're actually doing 15-minute consultations to anybody that has a question or has anything that they're struggling with in regards to screen reader teaching, okay? You can find all of that on our website. It's itvision, EYET vision.com, all right? And I'll show you guys that in a second when I share my screen. But then also in the future, we're really excited. Our goal is to provide really affordable screen reader training. And with that comes in August, we're launching our online portal. So you'll be able to go onto our website, log in, and get all of this information, the YouTube channel, the YouTube videos, the screen reader cheat sheets, all of that in one place. And then we'll also start offering paid online courses for screen reader instruction. Our first one is going to be in September, and it's going to be basic internet navigation with a screen reader. That's Jaws, NVDA, or Chromevox. Okay, so keep an eye out, visit our website, see what we're about. We are right now offering all free materials, so definitely check us out and see what you can grab from us. But perfect. So thanks, Jim. I'll start sharing my screen. The first thing before we even get onto the training, I just want to show you guys the website, and then we will get started. So Our website is, oops, here we go, itvision.com. All right. And I try to keep this as updated as possible. So anything that we release for free will just be on this website. All right. So at the top, you'll see our screen reader lesson challenge. All right here. All you do is sign up with your email address. Here is our screen reader cheat sheets. We have our YouTube channel, and then other stuff that we have done for APH, like the Virtual Excel Academy. We have our blog. And then, of course, we have our request for a free consultation. So really everything in order. If you go to our website, itvision.com, you can find all of that. All right, let's get started on what you guys actually came here for. And that's Microsoft Teams with Jaws and screen readers. So housekeeping, if for those of you who haven't done a training with me, I know a lot of people love PowerPoints. But for me, I love the idea of a Google Doc to run through training. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So I can see it, there's a number of people on this Google Doc. And if you're not, what we'll do is we can put that in the chat, and it was also sent out before. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to this Google Doc, and I'm gonna switch over to this side. And what you're gonna do is you can either follow along with me and just read, or you can come up to the file menu and go to download Microsoft Word document. And then what that will do is you can download that document and take your own notes. Now, why are we using a Google Doc? Well, first of all, if you're using a screen reader, it's so much easier to go through a document than to go through a PowerPoint. That's number one. Number two, as we go through the training, if there's something that I find that I need to add or somebody has a question, I just throw it right in the Google Docs so you guys have immediate access to it, okay? So that's just kind of how we're gonna do it. As you can see, this runs through the training from beginning to end. So if you wanna follow along, this is pretty much what I'm going to be using to guide our training today. Okay. So I'm going to switch back to this one. Okay. So introduction, we're going to start out with Microsoft Teams, just kind of a discussion to talk about what Microsoft Teams is. And then we're going to do a little bit of visually understanding how to access it and how it works, okay? So Microsoft Teams, it's really interesting because it really works a little bit different than all of the other video conferencing platforms out there. The two that I think school districts are using other than Microsoft Teams are Google Meet and Zoom, all right? And the difference between Microsoft Teams and those is that in Google Meet and in Zoom, you can call anybody in the world and with just a link. So I'm gonna show you that here. And this is why I love using a Google Doc to do this, is I'm gonna show you really quick. So I'm gonna open up Google Meet as an example. I can join or start a meeting. This is live, so I haven't done any setup before. I'm going to name my meeting. I'm going to dismiss, join now, blah, blah, blah. And then I can get the contact info and I can send that to anybody in the world as long as they have an internet connection, okay? Now, why am I telling you? And Zoom works the exact same way, right? We all know that. Now, the difference with Microsoft Teams, is I'm going to open Teams right now, is it really goes off of your team that you have built, all right? So this is really important for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you wanna be in contact with somebody, you wanna make sure that they're added to your team, all right? So if I go to my teams right here, I've developed a team here, all right? And I can go to my participant list and I've added all of my accounts and also Jim Sullivan. So these are only the people in my team that I can contact right away, okay? Now, can you contact most people? Sometimes, all right? The big thing with Microsoft Teams is it's a little hard to contact people outside of your organization. So for example, my organization is IT, that's my company, and that's my domain. So my email address is codyl@itvision.com. That's the domain, right? If you're at a school district, for example, my domain of my school district account is bcps.org. If I'm trying to contact Jim Sullivan at aph.org, it's sometimes possible, but it's a little hard because IT administrators, people up in your technology department, want to make this nice and secure. Why am I telling you this? Well, because my advice to everybody here is if you're using Microsoft Teams, you want to be participating or in contact with people inside your organization, all right? So if you're in a school district account, you want to make sure that you are contacting people also in your school district account, okay? Contacting other people, I would recommend using Google Meet or Zoom, okay? So that's just a little bit of clarification. And I think, Leanne, I think this would be a good time for that alternative, the poll question, Because that would be really interesting to know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're talking about which screen reader your student is using, correct? Or
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
conferencing
I did it
platform,
out of
sorry.
order.
That's okay. I'll do the
I did it out of
conferencing
order.
platform. There you
Cool.
go. Conferencing platform. What video conferencing platform is your agency primarily using for instruction, or you primarily using to get instruction? It all depends on what role you are coming from. Is it Microsoft Teams? Are you using Google Meet? Are you using Zoom, Adobe Connect, and other? And if you have other, can you write it in the chat? What is your other? We were trying to think up all the different ones that people might actually be using. So I wonder what other we'll see in there. I am seeing Skype.
Lots of Zoom.
Google Meet with WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Meet and Zoom both, depending on the school district. So let's see what our poll showed. Our poll shows 19% with Microsoft Teams, 11% with Google Meet, 60% with Zoom, 1% with Adobe Connect, 10% with other. So some other things are in-house products such as VA Video Connect, TMS, Skype. Veterans administrations are using VA Video Connect, so they must have their own. GoToMeeting. So
cool.
there you go.
All right. Awesome. Sorry, I'm trying to keep you on your feet, apparently. I'm going out of order.
That's okay.
Yeah. Cool. So that's good to know. So today we'll be focusing on Microsoft Teams, and we'll be focusing on making that team and communicating with people in that team. Now, I was trying to think, what would this be very useful for? Leanne and I were talking about this before everybody jumped on. And I really think that this would be a really great tool if you're seeing multiple students at once. So for example, if you have a class of students, or you have a resource room, or maybe for you itinerant TVIs out there, if you have multiple Braille readers that you see at the same time, this would be a really great option to create a team and to be able to disperse information to those students that need the same information. That's where this tool is going to really be powerful for you. Okay.
Hey, Cody.
Yeah.
Just your screen is moving a little bit between various levels of blurriness.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So when we did that run through, you did some voodoo too. And depending on what you're doing, it could be more.
Yeah, I have a new webcam, so this is its first run. So is it better now?
So it's a little better. Yes, it's still a little blurry. It's funny, and then when you make a switch, it may get even more pixelized than what it had been. So
okay, well,
see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm also on the wrong Wi-Fi, so whoops. Okay. Okay, cool. So before we even get to the demonstration with screen readers, I want to show you guys just visually how Microsoft Teams works, okay? So we'll go through how to build your team, how to use the chat tab, how to use the call tab, and then we'll talk about how to transition to screen reader usage. So let's go on to Microsoft Teams. So here we have, and we're going to talk about this when we get into screen reader usage, but we want to make sure that we're very sensitive to how Microsoft Teams is set up. So we'll see at the very top here, we have this top bar, right? We have all of the main program controls like back, search, new conversation, right? Then we also have this is called the app bar on the side, all right? That's APP, like application. And this is where we can switch between all of the different functions of Microsoft Teams. So at the top, we have activity. Then below that, we have chat. Then we have Teams, calls, and files. And as you can see, as I move through this app bar, the main content in the middle is changing based on what I have. So let's go through and figure out how to make a team. If you want to make your team, if you want to make your resource room or your class of students, you're going to go down on the app bar, you're going to go to Teams, and then you're going to go to create, join or create a team, and then do create team, okay? And you can run through this process to create your team. I'm going to say build from scratch. I'm going to make it private, which means that my students will have to get a link from me, and I'm going to call it resource period, right, 3, all right, just as an example. As I create this, then what it's going to do is it's going to ask me which students I want to add to this. So then I can type in email addresses here, okay? That's just an example. I'm going to delete this team because I'm not going to use it, but just for you guys to understand how that works. So I've made a team here with all of my students, right? Me. And just for you guys to know, what I'm going to do during this demonstration is I have another computer set up here that's also logged into Microsoft Teams. And I'm just going to be calling and chatting with myself, which is usually how I live my life, right? Especially as an itinerant, just talking to myself in the car. So I'll be calling myself as the example, okay? Now, there's two things that we want to make sure that we know how to do. There's a difference between dispersing information among a team and calling or chatting with an individual student. So right here, I have my class or my resource room. I can put down here in the chat, I can type something or I can make a video call as long as I'm in that Teams tab, right? But if I want to chat with a specific student, I go up to chat. And if I want to call a specific student, I'm going to go down to call and say make a call, okay? So that's just a really brief overview of how visually somebody would access Microsoft Teams. And that's very important when you're teaching a student a new screen reader a new program with the screen reader, is to get them to understand, again, how is this set up spatially, okay? And we're going to go into that in a little bit. But before we do, I want to do one more thing. As you can see on my training agenda, screen reader usage, Microsoft key commands, so they will work with the same with JAWS, NVDA, or narrator. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people think that when you're doing a new program with JAWS and you're doing a new program with NVDA, that those are going to be two totally different key command structures. And sometimes they are, but with Microsoft Teams, it's not. And the reason why it's not is because Microsoft is the one that made these key commands. So when Microsoft made Microsoft Teams, it made it accessible and put key command structures inside the program. Now, what does that mean for us? That means that with NVDA and with JAWS, it'll work about the same. The key command structures I'm going to show you today are all going to work with NVDA and JAWS the exact same way. And just to prove that point to you, if you go all the way down to the bottom, I put some resources here. The first resource that I put is Microsoft Teams Accessibility. This is where you would go to access the information that I'm going to tell you today. And as you can see, the title is Use a Screen Reader to Explore and Navigate Microsoft Teams. So it doesn't say JAWS, it doesn't say NVDA, it says use a screen reader. And actually down here, it says we tested it with JAWS and NVDA, and the key commands are all about the same, okay? So that's just for you to know that this is gonna work the same with NVDA and with JAWS, okay? Now, let's get started with our actual screen reader demonstration with Teams, huh? So before we navigate, or before I turn on our screen reader, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to my student, again, that visual layout of the program. And I do this with every new program that I introduce. Now, what do I mean by that? It's pretty much what I just explained to you, right? We want to tell them about the main areas and how they look so that when they're stuck and they need to problem solve, we can have this discussion like, where are you? Remember, which way does that go, right? And you can have this spatial conversation with them. Another thing, especially with a more complex program like Microsoft Teams, is I might do a tactile diagram where I show the top bar, I show the sidebar, and I show that main content that changes, okay? And I would do that probably with a P-off machine, okay? So let's talk about the visual layout. So first of all, we have this top bar. Now what's in the top bar? These are, I would call our main program controls. That's like back, forward, our new conversation button, the search field, my account information, and then, you know, minimize, maximize, close, right? So these are our main program controls. Then the most important part of Microsoft Teams, I would say, is this app bar, and it goes right along the side, all right? And then it's important to know that as we change that app bar, as we flip through those tabs in that app bar, the main content, which is in the middle, changes, all right? So I'd have this conversation with the student. So now they are set up so that when they get stuck, I can say, where are you? Are you in the app bar? Are you in the top bar? Are you in main content, right? So we're setting up, we're front loading to make sure that when there are problems, because there's going to be problems, right? When there are problems, we can have that really calm, collected discussion with vocabulary that we've already gone over. Okay, so that's step number one. Now let's talk about how to actually navigate these, okay? And the way that I would explain to you guys and to a student how to navigate Microsoft Teams is by levels, okay? And you can see this in the training agenda, right? I say level 1 and level 2, right? And I'm explaining this the same way throughout each process. Now, what do I mean by levels? And I want you to think about levels as taking a flight, for example. So let's say you're going from anywhere, and you're trying to get to South Bend, Indiana, right? Well, you're probably not, because South Bend, Indiana is a really small airport, right? You're probably not going to fly directly to South Bend, Indiana. You're probably going to fly to Chicago, right? You're going to take a big plane to Chicago and then get on a little plane and go to South Bend, right? That's what I mean by levels. So we're going to have our level 1, which is that big plane. It's going to take us to the main areas, the main hubs of the program, all right? What are our main hubs? I mean, the top bar, the side, the app bar, the list, the main content, right? Those are our main hubs that we're going to go. That's that big plane going to Chicago. And then once we're at that hub, once we're close by, whatever we need to go to, then we're going to move down to level 2. We're going to get on that small plane, right? And we're going to go in bit by bit to wherever we need to go, okay? So think about that as we go through this process. Think about our level 1, right? That big plane going to Chicago, and then our level 2, that small plane going to South Bend, okay? Does that make sense? I always say that, does that make sense? Like people can answer me. Habits.
They're listening intently.
Yes, right. Does that make sense? Perfect. Okay, cool. So now that we know about our level 1 and level 2, let's talk about the key commands that are associated with that level 1 and level 2 access, all right? So to do this, I'm going to turn on my screen reader, right? Today, again, JAWS and NVDA are going to work the exact same with Microsoft Teams. I'm going to use NVDA today. And the only reason they work the exact same, but the only reason I'm using NVDA is because NVDA just came out with an update where there's these big, beautiful boxes that show you visually where I am on the screen. And it works very well for webinars so that you guys can all see where I am, right?
General, eye.t, speech mode off.
Oh, what happened to my speech?
And I have silenced the chat for a moment.
Cool. That's weird. Well, you know what I didn't do? Hold on, I need to share my screen again to make sure that you guys can hear my audio.
We could hear it, but you're welcome to do it again.
Oh, you could hear it. Oh, that's weird. I couldn't hear it, so that's not very helpful. Let's try this again.
Meeting.
Can you hear
General,
it now?
Microsoft Teams with General, AYET LLC, Microsoft Teams document, Teams and channels list navigation. Meeting end.
Yes.
Meeting ended. Hide thumbnail, video layouts window.
Weird.
Start. R240 high,
Wow,
Netgear 50, R24, task,
before.
volumes, 53, 79, 60, 80. Dismiss task,
Well,
switch, navigation
tons.
landmark, tree view.
Okay,
Level
cool.
1,
So
tree
I
view
will
item
try
expand.
to continue just visually. Wow, this is going to be a challenge. Whew, all right, so.
Can you turn Jaws down? He's loud.
Can I turn him down?
Netgear, R240,
yeah.
volume,
There.
57, 43.
That's better.
Select.
Better.
All right, cool. So we'll see how this works. All right, so let's start with our level 1 access. Again, we're trying to go from top bar to app bar, list, and main content. All right. The way to navigate, remember that big plane going to Chicago, going to our hubs, is going to be Control and F6. All right. So if you have a function key on your keyboard, you probably also have to add in function. So you're going to hold down Control, maybe hold down function, and do F6, and you're going to be able to hop through those main hubs. So let's try it.
Search landmark, combo box,
so there's our top
type / or add for a list of app bar, use up or down arrow keys to navigate through Teams and channels list navigation
list.
Landmark filter, application,
And there's
Cody
our main
Laplante
content.
section.
All right.
Start a new conversation. Type at to mention someone. Search landmark.
Hold on, Cody.
bar.
He's still talking, so you need to wait.
Oh, sure.
Now you need to say what you were saying because you were talking over him and he was talking over you.
Gotcha. So yeah, so all it's doing is cycling from the top bar to the app bar to the list to the main content. And it's just going all the way through those hubs. Okay. Sounds good. So that's our level 1 access. Now for level 2 access, here, I'm going to do this.
Speech mode off.
Let's say speech off.
It did.
Okay, good. All right. I'm going to ask you that a lot.
That's okay.
All right. So now let's go to our level 2 access. Now our level 2 access, I try to find a pattern, right? So something that you can kind of give as a suggestion. Microsoft Teams doesn't really have an amazing pattern to go through, but I'm going to give you some suggestions. So our level 2 access, remember to get to those little tiny controls, to get closer to where we want to be, it's either going to be, number 1, it's going to be up or down arrow, or it's going to be tab and shift tab. All right. So for example, if I'm in my speech on, yeah.
Speech on.
Okay, good. If I'm in my app bar, all right, I can use the up and down arrow.
Toggle button, press Teams.
Now it's not always up and down arrow. All right. Because for example,
Teams and channels list navigation
here,
landmark filter. Control Teams and channels list.
It could be up and down arrow, or it could be tab and shift tab. It could, if up and down arrow does not work, right? Then you're going to use tab to go forward, shift tab to go back. Now, as I was saying,
speech mode off.
Off.
Beautiful. As I was saying, it's either going to be one or the other, and I want to make sure that there's a pattern. Now, there's not an amazing pattern for this, but typically, if the control, and this is why we want to make sure our students understand spatially where things are, if the control is, controls go up and down, it's going to be up and down arrow. And if the controls go left and right, it's going to be tab and shift tab. All right. This does not work all the time. All right. So what I would tell a student is that's a suggestion, but mainly if one is not working, then try the other. I'll give you an example of that. So if I'm in the top bar, I'm going to transfer to our top bar. Remember, I'm going to use my level 1 access to go to the top bar.
And what was your level 1 access?
That's control and F6, right? Speech is on, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So control and F6. I'm going to get to my top bar.
Application. Start a new conversation. Search landmark. Combo box.
All right, I'm there. And now, remember, top bar is going left and right, right? So I'm going to guess that in order to go to my account controls, I'm going to use tab because I need to get left and right, not up and down. So I'm going to use tab.
Signed into eye.t LLC.
Okay. So typically the pattern is if you're trying to get to a control either to the right or to the left, you're going to use tab and shift tab, right? Tab to go to the right, shift tab to go to the left. You're trying to go up and down, like on this app bar, you're going to use up and down. Again, it's not going to work every time. Okay. So this program is going to be a lot of problem solving, but typically I would say to my students, start with that level 1 access, control F6 to get to those main areas is going to be the same all the time. Every process, it's going to be the exact same. And then for that level 2 access, it's either going to be one or the other, tab or shift tab or up and down arrow keys. All right. So let's use our new knowledge to actually do something, huh? So beautiful. Awesome. Julian, this is super helpful. So let's start with making and accepting calls. Okay. And this is for individual students. So if you want to call an individual student, let's problem solve the way as how to do this, right? Let's first go through, I want you guys to think about this at like orientation and mobility. So I've kind of given you the lay of the land, right? With our level 1 and level 2 access. And then think about this as like a route, all right? So now we're doing level 1, we're going to get to our first landmark, right? And then level 2, we're gonna learn the route to get to our destination. So think of it like orientation and mobility, and this is our first route that we're going to learn. Making and accepting calls, all right? Let's run through this route. So making calls, level 1, you're gonna find the app bar, right? Level 1, remember that's control F6. You're gonna do control F6 until you find that app bar, all right? Then our level 1 access is done. We've gotten to Chicago, right? Now we can get on our small plane and get to our destination, right? So level 2 is we need to find calls, and I didn't put the key commands in here for a reason because I want to do this problem solving thing that our students are going to do. We need to, once we're at that app bar, we need to find calls, and then we have to find make a call, and then we have to type the name of our student. All right, so those are our main steps. If you're working through this with a student, I would print this out and I would say, okay, and then use this as a prompt sheet. All right, but let's do this together now. All right.
Speech mode B, speech mode talk.
On?
On.
Beautiful. All right. So remember, we want to do our level 1 access to find at bar. So what will we do? Control F6, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to count every time.
Search landmark. Combo box.
There's our top
Type /
bar.
or at bar. Use up or down arrow keys to navigate through the
bar. So we're all set. We've finished with our level 1 access, right? Now for our level 2 access, what did we have to do? Well, we had to find calls. And I'm thinking it's either going to be tab or shift tab, or it's going to be up and down arrow key. But since I know that the app bar goes up and down, right? I'm going to try down arrow key, okay?
Toggle button not pressed. Calls toolbar.
Calls. I'm going to press enter.
Calls list.
Cool. So now what do I have to find? I have to find make a call. Okay, again, in the list, up and down, I'm going to try down arrow key.
Contacts tab 2 of 4.
Nope.
History tab 3 of 4.
Nope.
Voicemail tab 4 of 4.
Nope. Oh, my down arrow key is not working. What should I do? Well, I know that my next thing to try is tab and shift tab, so I'm going to do tab.
Show the dial pad button.
There it is. Make a call.
Type in.
Okay, so you see how I'm going through this process of problem solving. If one doesn't work, then try the other. And again, you see that pattern doesn't always work because make a call was below, down arrow key stopped working. So then you just try the other one. All right, and then I want to type the name of the person that I want to call. I'm going to be calling my info account, which is again on my computer right here. So I'm going to do INFO.
Info. Use left key to access previous chat recipient.
All right. Now, I want to make sure that I can get to that video call button down below. I'm trying down arrow. Nothing's working. So I'm going to use tab.
Suggested contact table tape. Audio call button.
Nope.
Video call button.
Tab. Oh, there it is.
Use R240 high. Intel.
Hopefully this works.
Display audio.
I'm getting a call.
And microphone. HD USB camera. Clickable call controls region call with info.
There I am.
Video isn't working. We couldn't use your webcam for video. Video isn't working. We couldn't use your webcam for video.
I'll hang up.
Okay.
Oh, you mean Jaws' speech is noisy?
Yeah, speech was noisy.
Got it. Well, you get the idea. Okay, so you can see that I used that problem solving technique on level 2 access, and you should be able to get to most things with either tab or shift tab or up and down arrow key. Okay, so I'm going to turn the speech off.
Speech mode off.
Off.
Yeah, good. Awesome. And I'm going to go on to my next route. So that's our first route that we did. All right. Nice and simple. Again, level 1 is always going to be the same. Level 2 is going to be a little bit of problem solving. All right. Accepting calls. So when we do accepting calls, it's going to be a little different. What's going to happen is because Microsoft Teams is linked into your computer, if your student is on their computer and you are trying to call them, what it's going to say is there's a new call from whoever you are, right? And it's going to say you need to do Control-Shift+A to accept that call. I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm going to link back here. I'm going to turn my speech on.
Speech mode.
Yeah, good.
I think so.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to make a call from my computer right here. All right. Let's see if it works.
Alert info is calling you. Accept with video. Press Control plus Shift.
Cool. You see that? Control-Shift-A.
Calling info.
There I am again. Hi.
It did it.
Beautiful. And now what I'm going to do.
You're going to turn that off because you're not going.
Video isn't working. We couldn't use your webcam for video.
My mic and turn off my sound. There we go. So now what I'm going to do, say I want to hang up this call.
You are now in control of the shared content.
You see our controls down at the bottom here, right? Down here at the bottom. They're going left to right, right? So I'm going to use tab and shift tab to, or I'm going to the right. I'm going to use tab to get to that hang up button. All right. So
turn camera off button. Mute button. Open sharing options button. More actions button. Show conversation button. Show participants button.
Boom.
Hang up button. Alert leaving call.
All right. And that's how to make and accept a call individually. All right. That's for one student. Okay. Leanne, you want to do a poll here?
I can do that. So
cool.
We are curious. What screen reader are your students using? So we had JAWS, NVDA, and other. Of course, we're expecting a lot of JAWS because that's
From
what we
Keely's Island
put,
to all
but we
panelists.
know that you
Chrome
have
box alert.
multiple students and you've got your sound, your JAWS speaking still.
Info Microsoft Teams.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Speech mode off.
There
Speech
you go,
mode
it's
beeps.
off. Oh, now it says beeps.
Speech
Now it's
mode
beeping.
off.
Now it's off.
Good.
Okay, so, and again, if you're in other, feel free to put that in the chat. And of course, we have a lot of people saying both JAWS and NVDA, but we've got ZoomText, Mac, VoiceOver, both. So VoiceOver, I'll share our results from this one, and 73% said JAWS, we have 9% NVDA, and then we have 18% other, and as you heard, there's some VoiceOver in there, there's both, Chromevox, so there you go.
Hey,
Narrator
Cody,
when it works.
What's up, Jim?
hey, I was just sort of saying that your analogy of mapping is really a great one, right? Because you're more or less saying, hey, before we even start the journey, let's sort of see the steps all along the journey. Let's see where we're going to get to so we know what it is that we're looking for. And then here again are some clues, tips, some things that you can do to problem solve as you make your way through the route to get to where it is that you need to be, which is, I think, really something that really would relate to a lot of the kids that you're working with as, simultaneously they're working with the orientation and mobility instructors out there. So just thought I would bring that up.
Yeah, and I think I try to make it as every time that you come up with a new program to teach, that analogy of doing let's get oriented and then let's do a route is something that I use all the time because the kids have been on orientation and mobility lessons, right? And O&M instructors very generally do a very good job of really driving that home. So it's something that I bring up as an analogy a lot, all right? And that's typically, again, the flow that I go through. Let's get oriented and then let's learn a route.
And you'll need to stop sharing the poll.
Yes, right. All right. And I think
Speech mode beeps.
Oh, I didn't.
From Leanne Verloc to everyone. Speech mode off.
I thought I fixed my audio, but I didn't. Oh, well. Okay, so let's go through our second route. And at some point, we might run out of time, but that's okay. Let's do our second route. So our second route is making and accepting group calls, okay? And we're going to use the same process for this, okay? Remember that level 1 access, going to stay the same with Control F6, get to our main hub, all right? And then problem solve with that intermittent flight, right? So our level 1, again, we're going to find the app bar. That's the same hub we're going to, okay? And then once we get to level 2, we're going to find teams. We're going to find the correct team because you might have multiple teams. You might have multiple things in there. You're going to find start a new conversation, and then you're going to find meet now, okay? And actually, if you find the correct team and that chat is already going, all right, then you don't have to start a new conversation. You just have to find meet now. So I'll show you that in a second, all right? But that's the main process. Again, that level 2, we're going to be problem solving and figuring out the next step. If one doesn't work, if up and down arrow key doesn't work, we're going to do tab and shift tab. So let's see it. And Leanne, I'm going to turn on
speech mode beeps.
Speech on. Good.
Beeps.
Beeps.
Speech mode talk.
Speech on.
On.
Good. Okay. Awesome. So let's do it. So first, we're going to do our level 1 access is Control F6. We're going to try to get to that app bar again.
Type a new message. Editing edit multi-line blank. Search landmark. Combo box.
Nope.
Type / or app bar. Use up or down arrow keys to navigate through the control.
All right. Remember our app bar, those controls go up and down. So I'm going to use my up and down arrow key.
From Robert Miller, toggle button not pressed files toolbar. Menu button submenu more edit apps toolbar.
I know now I've probably passed it, so I'm going to use my up arrow key.
Toggle button not pressed files toolbar. Toggle button not pressed calls toolbar. Toggle button not pressed teams toolbar.
Enter.
Teams and
okay. And as you can see, that main content has changed. And actually, right now you can see that that blue box has actually moved into the list for me. All right. Sometimes this throws kids off. All right. Sometimes they're like, okay, now I need to get to the list. But I would say that that is a really good opportunity. I let my kids kind of go through that confusion process and then come back and debrief and say what happened, right? Because your kid might say, okay, now I need to get to the correct team, and they think they're still in the app bar. Let them make the mistake, right? And then come back and debrief, all right? But for time's sake, I'm gonna just do it correctly. So now I know that I'm in my list, right? Microsoft has put me into the list. So I'm going to, and remember, again, my list goes up and down. I'm going to try up and down arrow key first. So I'm gonna go down.
Level 2 EYET LLC team. Level 3 general channel.
Do this general
favorited.
Chat.
EYET LLC.
And again, once I put enter, it transports me into the start a new conversation, the little chat field, right? Which is very nice. Now, if you want to, I'm just going to do this as an example. If you want to chat with your students or give your students like an announcement, you can actually type something in here and it will release to everybody on that team. So you can see my participants here are all of my accounts and Jim. So if I want to say something to the laptop that's right next to me, it's called info, right? That's info@itvision.com. I can say, hi,
space,
and then use at, and you can mention one of your participants.
One suggestion available, info at hi info. Sending.
Right. And that now pops up on my screen.
Message sent.
Laptop. That's just a little tidbit that you guys can use. All right. Now, what are we trying to do? We're trying to meet as a group, right? So what I want to do is I want to get to, just for you guys visually, there's this little video icon down here that I want to get to. All right. Now it's below me. So I might think that I want to use my down arrow key, right? So let's try it.
Blank.
Oh, that doesn't work, right? It just added to my chat box. So what I'm going to do is what? You're going to tab.
Actions menu format.
Awesome. Since that's going in the right direction, I'm going to continue. I'm going to see if I can tab again.
Menu send button set.
Oh, it says send, right? And me as a visual user, I can see that it skipped it. A lot of times kids will continue just because they don't know that they've skipped it.
Back button back.
And then you can have that conversation like, oh, you just jumped all the way up to the top bar. So that didn't seem to work. So let's back up to the last place we knew where we were. So we're shift tab.
EYET LLC, general channel
Shift
content,
tab.
menu form.
All right. And this is the last place that we knew what was going on, right? Just like in O&M, if you get lost, you go back to the last place that you knew what was going on. And let's try our next key command. So tab and shift tab, obviously from this point did not work. So let's try down arrow key.
Button options. Button attach. Use left and right arrow. Button choose an emoji. Button choose a Giphy. Button choose a sticker. Button meet now. Use left and right arrow key.
There it is. So there's our video. So you see, again, that problem solving technique. A lot of times, and you can see it goes a little bit more seamlessly because I can see what's going on the screen. Your students will have a little bit of a cumbersome time if they can't see what's going on the screen, obviously. But it's really important to work through that problem solving technique and to practice the skill of not getting frustrated when you're problem solving, right? Because that is a skill, to go through that frustration without getting frustrated, all right? So now I'm on video, I can just press enter.
EYET LLC, right. General channel content mainland.
What do you want the subject to be? Meeting, because
I'm
creative.
G.
Enter,
meeting,
and it starts a meeting,
connect.
Okay? Now, on my end, I can go into that chat and see that the meeting is happening, all right? I'm going to show you that from the other side. So I'm going to end this call, tab, 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 tab.
Hang up button.
Right?
Alert leaving.
And let's see what happens if I start the meeting on my laptop and see what happens in the chat, okay? So on my laptop, I'm going to do the same thing visually, just for time's sake. I'm going to say meet now.
Message from info. Meet up in progress.
You can see there's a meeting that's already been started. Now, how would we get here? We could go through our same process. We get to the app bar, we get to the right team, we get to the chat, and then we can figure out how to get to that join button that has now appeared above us, right? Now, if your student is already oriented, right? This is the beautiful thing about being oriented to this program. If your student is already oriented, they know that they're in the chat box. Guess what? They don't have to go to the app bar. They don't have to go to the team, and they don't have to get to where they are because they know that they're already there. If they don't know that, I love making them go do that again, just to make sure that they are oriented when they start moving, okay? But let's say I'm oriented, and I know that something is above me. What am I gonna do? I don't need to do my level 1 access. I'm on the right app in the app bar. So let's do our level 2 access and try to get above me, right? Again, we're trying to get above, so I'm gonna try up arrow key. Up arrow key, doesn't work, right? If I wanna get above and I'm using tab and shift tab, I would use shift tab to go backwards, right? So tab goes forwards, shift tab goes backwards. I want to kind of go backwards. I want to go up the page. So I'm going to do shift and tab. Shift tab.
Clickable. By info.
That sounds right.
0
Let's
replies.
try it one more
Toolbar.
time.
Close people pane
Nope,
toggle
passed
button.
it, so let's go back down.
TYET General channel. Meeting now.
Now I'm switching to down arrow key because I'm not quite at that join button, right?
128. Meeting participants
Down
list
arrow
with
key,
one
down
item
arrow
blank.
key.
Out of list button join.
Oh, there it is. Join.
Choose your audio and video settings for region. Join the meeting
Join
button.
now. That makes sense.
Connecting.
Connect.
Video isn't working. We
And there
couldn't
I
use
am
your
in-
webcam for video. Full call controls region.
All right.
Again, I'm going to hang this up with tab to go over to the end call.
Over to the
Tab, tab,
Turn camera.
Tab,
Mute
tab,
button.
tab,
Open.
tab,
More.
tab,
Show. Hang up
tab.
button.
Okay, so
Alert
that's
leaving.
our second route.
Call. Loading more.
All right. What do we got?
So
time?
we had a couple of questions here.
Yeah,
Cody.
go for
So-
it. Let me turn off my speech first.
Right.
Is it
So
off?
yep.
Speech mode off.
Okay, cool.
So I think one of them will kind of work from the most recent and work back. Is there not a keystroke to join into a meeting? In other words, that popped up. Is there no quick keystroke to get to that meeting?
Yeah, so this is a really good question that really outlines kind of my philosophy in teaching screen readers. There is shortcuts like that, absolutely. Now, do I know if there's a shortcut to quickly join a meeting? That's a really great question. I would direct you to that resource at the bottom with Microsoft Accessibility. But before you start teaching your kids keystrokes, I'm like not a shortcut person, right? I would much rather a student go through the process of being oriented to the program and do it the long way. And then once they can do it the long way, then you give them that shortcut. And that's kind of why this is not very shortcut heavy, all right? So I'll give you an example. There is shortcuts. For example, you can use control on the app bar, you can use control and the number. So for example, to get to chat, you would do control 2. To get to Teams, you can do control 3. But that kind of it's hard to understand where you are when you use those shortcuts, right? If you understand where you are in the program, then you can understand what is in front of you and what is behind you. If you begin by teaching your student the shortcut, then they're kind of just jumping all over the place and they have to memorize those shortcuts instead of understanding how to get to somewhere, right? So I'm sure there is. Unfortunately, I didn't look it up because I wanted to make sure that this was nice and systematic and easy to orient.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was another question that came in a little earlier. That is,
Sure.
Will students receive alerts that you try to chat with them, or do they have to be in Teams in real time?
This is a great question. It depends on the settings. So when you download Microsoft Teams, it is already set up so that your notifications will come onto your desktop. So as long as your student is on their desktop with a screen reader on, the screen reader will say, so-and-so is trying to call you, or so-and-so mentioned you in a comment. If you just put something in the chat, I think that the default is that that won't show up, right? You have to mention that student. You have to put @ and then their username, okay? But that can also be disabled. For example, you can disable those notifications. So it depends on how the settings are set up. By default, yes. Yeah.
All right, and the one last question, there may be some more here, but we'll let you
Sure.
move forward, and that is, can you navigate or jump to buttons by pressing the letter B?
You can. That's a really great question. And that comes from kind of the internet navigation commands. So yes, you can, absolutely. You just have to make sure that your PC cursor is in the correct setting. So if you're familiar with Jaws, that PC cursor needs to be on. Or in NVDA, you have to be in browse mode. But yes, you can use those internet navigation commands. A really good one that I would recommend using is these. If you can see the screen, each chat is a heading. And I would say that the easiest way to move up through that chat is by using the H key to move through headings. But yes, you can use the buttons command as well.
Okay. All right. So why don't we let you go forward? There are a couple other questions out there, but I think we're
Sure.
at 12:53, and I think you wanted to get into a little bit of some navigation commands, right?
Yeah. So I was just going to share with you guys, again, a couple of those shortcuts. And I wouldn't advise this unless your student really demonstrates understanding of where they are. I'm much more of a fan of learning that orientation. But once your student demonstrates that they know where they are in the program, you can start teaching these shortcuts, which makes them a lot more efficient. The first one, the one that I think is going to improve efficiency the most, is by using that control and the number for the app bar. So what does that mean? That means that if I want to jump to calls, for example, I know it's 4th down on the app bar, I'm going to use control 4. All right. And it's going to jump me to calls. And I know I didn't have speech on there, but you get the idea. All right. So control and the number of the app on the app bar. All right. The next one is if you want to start a new conversation, very similar to most programs, control N. Right. So if I want to start a brand new conversation with somebody.
Speech mode beeps.
Speech on. Yeah.
Beep. Yep. It's on beep.
That's beeps. Oh, okay.
Speech mode.
Speech on. Then I'm going to do control and N.
Chat Microsoft.
I'm just going to start. I can type in the person who I want to do. All right. So for example, if I want to start a conversation with info, INFO. Boom.
Search results updated.
It's going to bring me to my conversation, and then I can tab to get to. So that's a really good way to navigate if you want to just quickly start a new conversation.
Speech mode off.
And finally, I would say that this is where you should go if you're interested in these shortcuts, is if you want a whole list of shortcuts within the program, you can do control
Speech
and
mode
period. Beeps.
Speech mode talk.
You can do control period.
General
and it'll bring
heading.
up a whole list of your key commands. Now, if you're familiar with navigating with tables, you can do this with your table reading commands, or if you're not, you can just use down arrow and it will go through the key commands.
Table with 7 control columns from Leandro. Control E.
Okay, you see that. So those are the 3 that I'm going to share with you, and those are the 3 that you can start to get started. So for whoever it said, is there a quick way to join a meeting? That will, if there is, that will be in this and that's kind of all I have for you guys. And I'm sorry I went through that a little bit faster at the end. But yeah, I'll turn off my speech.
Speech mode off.
And then if anybody has any more questions before 1 o'clock, that would be.
Oh, they're out there, Cody. The questions
cool.
are out there.
All right,
it's
let's hear 'em.
difficult to try to prioritize these. You did cover the keystrokes so that was a question that came in. So I know that was appreciated. There seems to be some questions revolving around maybe the differences between actually the team's application for the PC versus the team's browser tool. Is there a difference between the way in which those commands will work if you're using the application versus the solution through the browser?
It's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head how they differ, but what I typically with Microsoft, the accessibility seems to be much more stable, I guess. Like it's more patterned. Like it seems to work much easier when you have running on the application. So I would recommend using the application. But that's a really good question. Something that I don't know off the top of my head.
Leanne, do you see other ones that are in there? I know you.
And I can stop sharing too.
Do we know how accessible the assignments component of Teams is? I don't even know what the assignments component is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, actually, so I guess I'll share again. I spoke too soon. So I assume you guys mean this files, right? So if you come down to files, and I clicked on it, but you can use that level 1 access to get to the app bar. You can use the level 2 access to get down to files and to add a file to your Teams or to a specific student. It will work the same pattern that I showed you with level 1 and level 2 will work the exact same way. It should be just as accessible as the rest of it. So if you wanted to add a file, I would then use tab to get into that list. And then I would use my down arrow key. Oh, down arrow key doesn't work. I would switch to tab to get to that add new file button. All
right, we have some stuff that's rolling in that almost seems like it would be for debate. Questions such as,
do
you have a preference between classrooms, Google Classrooms and Teams? There's a question in here about explaining the differences between Teams and Zoom. While we appreciate those questions, those questions in of themselves could probably be 15-minute to hour-long
Yes.
discussions.
And it's also gonna be very opinions based.
Yeah. All right. All right. So with that said, I think what we
Well, I
can.
have one more question to ask everybody
Okay.
before we get to there. I'm going to launch that. We are curious. How many screen reader lessons do you teach each month? Now, if you need to, you can go pre-COVID or current COVID, depending on what's going on for you. But are you doing less than one a month, somewhere between 1 and 3 a month, 3 to 5 a month, or more than 5 a month? How many screen reader lessons do you teach each month? And if you don't see the poll, it's because of the system you've used to join our webinar, so you can definitely type it in the chat. How many screen reader lessons do you teach each month? Less than 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, more than 5. And I will end the poll and see what we say. We have about 31%, less than 1, a quarter, 1 to 3, 15%, 3 to 5, and then almost 30% of you more than 5 a month. Very interesting. And yes, we know it does depend on the caseload of students you're working with. We completely understand that. We all bounce between that as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we would like to do a huge round of applause for Cody throughout the United States right now. So you could just maybe do the clap in the chat. We cannot thank you enough for going through that, and we hope that you will join us again. We're going to begin to make the transition over to bringing in our good friends from Vispero, and I am loving these pictures, by the way. Mike, you and the dog, and Eric, what is that, about 220 you've got to the T there, I guess, those pictures that are showing up on my end. But anyway, just a reminder that actually today, all new orders are shipping from APH, right? So if you've placed an order recently, those orders will begin to ship today. Just a reminder that, again, if at any point in time over the course of the last month or two, you've placed an order with APH and told APH to hold because your facility is not accepting packages, you'll want to reach out to the customer service team to release those if you haven't already done so or you haven't heard from the customer service team. And the customer service team can be reached at cs@aph.org or 800-223-1839. And I think we want to end the recording and throw the closing code in. Is that correct?
I'm going to pause.
Phenomenal. So is it back to me now?
It's back to you.
All right, phenomenal. All right, so again, thanks to Cody for joining us, and joining us now to talk a little bit about Vispero Software Solutions are Mike Wood, coming to us live and in stereo from somewhere in southwestern Ohio. And down in the great state of Florida, not on the golf course, is currently Eric Damery with Vispero as well. So thank you, gentlemen. I guess I would like for you both maybe to describe both of those Zoom pictures that we had up there. Mike, you were sitting in front of the fireplace with the dog, and Eric, you were standing on the tee, but maybe that's for another time. So anyway, this is Mike Wood, who is the Strategic Account Manager for Educational Products with Vispero. And here is Eric, VP of Software Product Management with Vispero as well. And as we transition from talking about using Teams with screen readers like Jaws, we want to transition into how APH can be a source for software solutions from Vispero, and we want to differentiate between some of what those software solutions are. So we've asked Mike and Eric to join us today specifically to talk about that. So I've put a slide up here on the screen for you all to view. The various solutions that are there include Freedom Scientific Software Suite, which includes Jaws, ZoomText, as well as Magic, and then an annual student license. So as we transition over and say welcome to Eric and to Mike, this will be sort of the topic. So this will be an opportunity for Vispero to describe and talk about these solutions, as well as your opportunity to drop questions for Eric and to Mike in the chat about, again, acquiring these solutions through APH or otherwise. So gentlemen, thanks for joining us. You want to take it away?
Thanks very much,
Great.
Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Nice to be here. Pleased to join the APH webinar today. And to answer the question about the photo, that was from Accessing Higher Ground. We were at that convention about 12 years ago, probably, and snuck away and went golfing in the mountains there outside of Boulder. It was awesome.
Nice. And Mike, for you, the dog in the fireplace?
Oh yeah, that was just actually it was kind of a joke. For Kentucky Derby, they were doing a derby at home, and someone from APH had bet me to take some photos for the derby, and so that was yeah, one of my dogs in the living room here taking a photo shoot. So it was quite fun. A little bourbon was involved.
Super.
So, Mike, how about if I jump in and explain the licensing and what we've had and what we've got now and where we're headed?
Sure. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So a number of years ago, I think it was probably about 5 years ago, we got together with APH and we provided a license for $300, which offered the ILM solution where you get the authorization number and you install the software and you can install a key on a computer, and that key would work for 1 year from the date of installation. It would allow you to use Jaws, ZoomText, or Magic. And at the end of the year, you would have to call back and order another license and get another code to be able to put a new key on the machine. Now, a little over a year ago, we introduced a new portal solution, which is very much like Office 365. And we started offering through APH an annual student license. This one you decide if you want to order a Jaws or a ZoomText, or you can order both. And when you do, APH will send to you the license to your email address, and you decide to either put that license tied to your email or forward that license to perhaps an IT person at the school that's going to manage the license for the student, or even sending it to a parent. This is something where you can set it up with the parent or send it directly to the child's email address, and the child would then manage it with their email account on our portal. Now, I mentioned you can get them both. You can put a license for both the products on the machine, and then they can use either one, but you only need to get the one that would be appropriate. And at the end of the year, when that license is going to expire, you'll be able to go back to APH, and APH hasn't been set up to do this yet, but we're getting close to having a program in place so that APH will be able to locate the email address for the license that you wish to renew, and they'll be able to renew it right there, and it will just push the new date, the new 1 year out expired date to that license for the student automatically to avoid having to get new codes and all of that. So this is the future. There are also home annual licenses that tens of thousands of people across the US purchase, and they use this software on their home computers. And sorry, my pool equipment just popped up and started making a lot of noise, so I hope that wasn't too distracting. So anyway, the home licenses work just like the student licenses, and so it's a very familiar new program. And Mike, maybe you may have something to add, but maybe we just jump into the portal and show what the portal works like. So once you've received a license from APH and determined whose email address it gets registered to, you will then receive an email after you've registered it with a link directly to the portal, and it will show up. Now, Mike has already registered on the portal and has a license set up. So if he goes to portal.freedomscientific.com and press enter, And he lands there, and it was set up with his work email, and he's got his password. So he'll sign in. And there's his license, and we see he activated it just before this webinar. He, on the bottom left lower corner there, you can see he activated it on the computer, and that VFOLPT is a name of his laptop. And it shows the activation date and time. And his particular license is a volume annual license that gets issued to our company staff, and they get enough activations for up to 3 computers. With a student annual license, you would have an activation on 1 computer. So you would see 1 of 1 installs detected instead of 3. The nice thing about this, though, is that, also there's a notes field there. Mike, you see that you can click in there, and Mike can click on that and type in something. This could be Mike's work computer, whatever he wants to call it to remember it, so that when he's looking at this later, he'll remember. You might put a student's name there if you're assigning a license to a student and helping them to register it, put their name right there so you can keep track of where it went. Now, once it's activated on a computer, Mike, go down there and click the deactivate button.
Okay.
So he's going to remove the license from his current computer, and he doesn't have to be on the computer to do this. He can go to any computer, log into the portal, and he could deactivate this computer. So let's say the computer crashed, or it got reformatted, or somehow you don't have access to it anymore. You can just log into the portal and control the licenses and manage those licenses just like you would with Office 365. So he's removed it. It shows now that it's back. He's got no installs detected. Go ahead and activate this computer, Mike.
Sure thing.
And he's going to activate it for JAWS. So he'll run this little routine. And what it does is it looks at his computer. It will find out if he's got JAWS already installed. If he does, it'll just allow him to go ahead and do the activation. If he doesn't have JAWS installed, in addition to putting the license on this computer, it'll offer for him to go ahead and install the software. So he already had it installed. It just did the authorization. You can click that, Mike, and you're done with it. And so that's gone. So now he's removed his license, put it back into the cloud, and now he put it back onto the computer. So this is very easy to manage for you or for the student or parent or for your IT professional at the school, and to be able to move those licenses back and forth. Mike, anything you want to share about the process with APH? And I know that it turns around pretty quickly. They have licenses available to them, so a PO can be sent in either through quota funds, or they can be ordered directly. And I would imagine the turnaround from APH is pretty quick with these licenses.
Yeah, with this portal license, it's very quick now. It's a lot easier to manage. And am I going in and out there? Sorry. And, you know, it's $90 a year for JAWS and $80 a year for ZoomText. And as you saw, as we just showed there with the portal, it's pretty straightforward and makes it super easy. I'm just thinking of, like right now, all of the capability of, say there was a computer at school that the student was using and being at home now, they could easily have deactivated that one and activated the home computer.
Yeah, I think the way to think about the student annual license, though, is you want to be using it on, you probably want this for school equipment. Mm-hmm. So that if the student is being sent home with a laptop from school, then use a student annual license, put it on that laptop, and you can control that license later on. If the student is being set up and they're just going to be using their own personal equipment at home, the parent might want to consider a home annual license. They can buy that separately. But for for the schools to manage these things, go with the student annual license and move the key around that way.
So we had
I should also add that one of the questions that oftentimes comes up is what's different between the software. What would be different if I were to get a job at a bank later and I were going to be using a Jaws license there versus the student annual license? Is there anything different in the software? And there isn't. And that's the beauty of this, is that the student has full access to all of the functionality of the software, whether they're running a student license or whether they're getting a professional license at work. So all of the capabilities are the same.
So a couple of questions, Eric, that came up while we were demoing that were TVI had asked, could they manage multiple accounts? And what if they needed multiple installs, for example, maybe a laptop, multiple laptops for the same student?
So that's a good question. So with the student annual license, it's less than 100 a year, and that license is a per use or a per individual. Think of it that way. So if you've got a student who's going to go back and forth between two different classrooms, you probably don't want to have to be moving a license back and forth. So you would actually put a license on both computers. There's only one install, but you'd install it. You'd get two licenses, put one on one classroom and one on the other. The IT person could move these things back and forth, but we've tried to keep the price low enough to make it affordable. So it really is considered a computer install with those. Did that answer the question? Yep.
I think so. And then someone asked if we could show what it looked like, which I think that might have come in before we showed the portal. And then the last question that just popped up was, can you use the portal to access things such as webinar training, or is it only for managing licenses? And
that's a good question. And today the portal is only for managing your license. In the future, and don't ask me what the date's going to be, but in the future, I fully intend on seeing your user settings stored in the portal with your license. So let's say a student or an individual on their home computer logged into their home computer, did an installation of a portal license and set it up. They set their speech rate, they set their Braille settings, they've got, you know, there are many different application settings you might put in place that you use when you use the computer each day. Now you go to school and you're going to log in using your email address to put your license and software on another computer someplace. The settings that you've set at home would be stored with that activation, and you would have an opportunity to have those settings installed. As far as accessing the webinars, we hadn't really thought through how we might tie those together with the portal, but if today you go to freedomscientific.com and go to the training page, you'll find access to all of our webinars. There is also the YouTube channel that's out there that you can get access to the material. And we do reference that stuff from within the product too. So if you go to the help menu, you can get access to it.
Eric, I see there's a question here that says I was planning to purchase a license for my classroom, but if we have distance learning in the fall, should I purchase a student license instead? That would be, would that be a second license? So if you have one student using it at home for distance learning and maybe in the classroom, again, you'd be talking about two licenses, correct?
Yes, you would. And for the home purposes, again, if the student is going to, if the software is going to be installed on equipment other than school equipment, this is a case where they may want to talk to the parent. They may want to consider a home annual license that gets tied to their name, and the school buys the software that goes on the school equipment. Okay. Now, we did have an awful lot of people with this COVID-19 pandemic kicked in March. We had a lot of people come to us and say, you know, obviously schools are closing down, businesses are closing down, we're all having to work from home. We need access to the tools that we had in the school environment or in the work environment. So the thing that we went forward and created was a free portal license that anyone in the United States and Canada can get access to use free of charge till the end of June. So if the school student didn't get set up with a student annual license from APH already, they may have already gone out and taken advantage of this, or they still can. There is software that you can get to from the Freedom Scientific homepage. Put in an email address, you'll receive an email at that. Mike, maybe you can show that. There you go, free home software license. Click that.
Click there.
And if you put in an email address, now hold on before you do anything here, Mike.
Okay.
Once you put in, so there's a couple of things here. This page is actually used for college students. So if you have a college email address and that college is a qualified school that has a multi-user license and up to date, your email address may already qualify you for free annual software. So college students are encouraged to put in their college email address and see what they get. Otherwise, if they put in an email that's not a college email or it's not qualified, you could put in any email here. Why don't you put in Jim's email, if you know it.
Very good.
Bingo. Now search, and he is qualified because he's in the United States, so he's qualified to get free software. He can pick Jaws, ZoomText, Fusion. Click the continue to registration, and it's going to ask him to confirm his email address. You can put his name. We'll fill them all out. He'll be getting an email before we're done here. And any of the TVIs can share this with any of the parents who are stuck at home and haven't got access. This is a time not only to be getting schoolwork done, but this is a good time for the student to be able to learn how to do some of these things. While you're getting started with a screen reader, you might even look at the Typability program or the typing tutor from APH and get the child started on keyboarding. Keyboarding is so important. Cody was sharing the team's experience and showing the different ways of learning how to navigate around with tab and the arrow keys. And while I appreciate all of that, I'm a big proponent of learning the keystrokes, learn how to run the application, and the student will do that. If they get very good on a keyboard, they'll learn how to do these things. So
Right. Sign Jim up. Jim, I'll send you your password afterwards for the portal. And so
you put in you registered him and gave him a password and everything. I get it. Yep.
I did. So he's all registered. So it's pretty straightforward. And as you mentioned, of course, free until June 30th. And then if you go to a college that has the license available, it's free forever.
Yep. And somewhere around the middle of June, we'll be announcing, because there's a lot of home users that took advantage of this June 30th free software. And around the 30th of June, 15th of June, I think we're going to be announcing something for anyone that attends the summer conventions. We have a lot of people at home that go to those conventions that buy our software and get discounted prices. And we're going to try and offer a discount to anyone in the United States and Canada to take advantage of on the home annual licenses. And so they can watch for the announcement on that. If they've already got the June 30th version, this will keep them going until that point. And again, reach out to APH. They've got the student licenses for the schools to install. And I'll say a lot of the states, there are many states that have taken advantage of this, but there are quite a few states that have not yet. And we...
You just muted yourself.
You muted there.
Yes,
There you go.
I did. I had an interruption happening here in the background, so I just shut it off. Sorry about that. But anyway, yes, take advantage of those home annual licenses. That's the way to go, and it'll be very easy to manage. I think the TVIs will really appreciate that. And
the other point I want to make, Eric, is that license is always the most current version. So you don't have to worry. I know in the past people were, worried about maybe if you were to activate that in September, and then we released a giant upgrade in October, you would get that for free. because of the time span of that license. So you're always staying current.
That's right. Yep. It's really based on time, not on version. So you can always not only have access to the new version, it'll also work with an older version. So if the school only has the 2019 version installed and they won't install the newer version, if you go and get one of those licenses, it'll still work with the 2019 version.
Right.
Very good.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, gentlemen, we really appreciate you joining us today and bringing us that information. We want to say thanks to Cody for joining us as well. Leanne, is there any other business that we need to take care of before we wrap things up? Oh, now you're muted, Leanne.
You're right. Now I am muted. I said, no, I haven't seen anything else really come in that we can answer. And thank you. This was great. We've got a nice compliment to each other.
You plug one more thing in here, Jim.
Sure.
For teachers who have students that use Braille displays, when we release the June update of Jaws 2020, and that'll come right around the middle of the month, there's a new feature that's going to be in that called the Braille Viewer and the Text Viewer. Now, we've always had a Braille Viewer in Jaws, but it never really showed the Braille. It only showed the text output. So once you've installed that June update, you'll find a feature in there called Braille Viewer under Utilities that you can turn on. And this is a window that'll pop up at the top of the screen, and you'll be able to see the dot representation that the student sees on the Braille display, and it will be linked to the text that represents those dots, and you'll be able to see the association between the two. So the Braille Viewer Text Viewer is a great feature, and it's also going to be available for Fusion users, people who use the Fusion software, to be able to not necessarily show Braille, but to have a window that pops up on the screen that always has whatever text is being read on the web page or the document. It'll always be in one location, and they can set the font and point size to whatever they want and the colors, and that window will always stay there.
Yeah, it seems like, Eric, the thing to zero in on that is how can we utilize that for some distance learning, right? That would be coming up, that ability for those TVIs to zero in on what those kiddos are doing and being able to sort of see those dot patterns.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the student shares their screen, runs that Jaws for Windows with the Braille Viewer open. The TVI will be able to see the Braille dots and know if the student is actually reading the right information.
So it looks like there'll be opportunity to bring you guys back to talk about that in more detail, because the folks that we're working with really would love that. So Michael, something for us to talk about in terms of future webinars. Sound good?
Good to me.
Glad you brought that up. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay. All right, folks, I think that's a wrap. Is that a wrap, Leanne? Is that a wrap?
That is a wrap. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week, okay?
Cool. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.